Hello, my name is Alexander Kerry. Welcome to the program. The Global Ukraine Initiative is a networking event aimed at promoting the success of Ukrainian leaders around the world. Joining me in the studio is Violeta Moskalu, co-founder of Global Ukrainian Forum. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
First question, what is your organization's strategy to implement Ukraine's interests abroad?
We developed our strategy of a professional people diplomacy network through a huge number of Ukrainian expatriates living all around the world. Their main activities are around informational projects, trying to promote Ukrainian brands and to speak about Ukraine and to fight also Russian propaganda. Cultural diplomacy is another field of activities. Business diplomacy, also trying to help Ukrainian brands to connect with potential partners and investors all around the world. Also a lot of educational projects, a lot of social humanitarian projects, medical initiatives, promoting tourism also. Ukraine has lost a lot of Ukrainians last 10-15 years. Many of them
saying that they went abroad?
Yes, many of them were highly educated, and they found good positions in different countries, in different sectors. We speak about three categories, three target audience for us. We have a lot of successful Ukrainians in the academic world, in Harvard University, Stanford, or in other universities. A lot of successful Ukrainians also in different business companies, Facebook, Google, Amazon, and so on. And the third category is about Ukrainians working for different European and international institutions.
So it's people with high profile.
Yes, it's highly educated and globally connected. We don't speak about the whole Ukrainian diaspora of about 20 million Ukrainians, but we try to catch the 5,000-10,000 of Ukrainian with a very high profile.
Can actually change the country.
Yes, because their contacts, their competencies, their knowledge, it's a big part of Ukrainian intellectual capital that left Ukraine. So Ukraine needed now in order to modernize, if I can say it like this, the mentality, the practices, the way of doing business here, and educational also reforms, anti-corruption fights.
So on a concrete matter, how can these Ukrainians abroad promote, how do they do to promote the country's interest?
We have like two different dimensions, pushing information from Ukraine about Ukraine abroad on a global level, trying to develop this network not only in the big capitals but in different regions, in different countries, and trying to help Ukraine to obtain intellectual capital and financial capital that the country needs now in order to develop and to reform itself.
But in your opinion, how influential is the Ukrainian diaspora in Europe, in Western Europe?
I think Ukrainians are everywhere now because we have contacts in more than 70 countries. In each European Union country, there are a lot of non-profit initiatives, NGOs, different kind of associations. We have Ukrainians in different think tanks. For example, there are some young Ukrainian leaders integrated in different countries that are candidates for different local elections also. In 2 years, we will have a new election for European Parliament. So in different countries, it's possible also to have Ukrainian candidates, also potentially future EU member of parliaments. Yes.
And that's a good thing that we took elections here, because I'm going to talk about the elections in France of course. How the fact that Emmanuel Macron won the presidential election, how does it favor Ukraine and especially Ukrainian interests?
Very good question. Emmanuel Macron is one young leader with a very strong philosophical position. He's not afraid to say what he really think, and he is not afraid to name the things. So when he said facing Russian president that Russia today is not a media but lobbying power and influence agent, it is really a good example. And he also said that France will never accept the annexion of Crimea, and he will also be very involved in the future negotiation projects in Normandy, format. Yes. So it's a very good point because propaganda and manipulation and cyber attacks coming from Russia became a very strong danger, not only for Ukraine but for the European Union and for the whole world. So it's a very positive point that we have with Emmanuel Macron. I think a strong ally. He will also be very exigent with Ukraine also, and with Ukrainian politicians, and it's also very good for our country.
So. The Global Ukrainian Forum initiative, which is gonna happen soon, aims to include foreigners in Ukraine also, especially in the domestic reforms. How can Ukraine benefit from foreign expertise or experience?
When you have spent 5 or 10 years abroad, like for example in France, as me, where I live since 20 years almost, you get experience of living in a very healthy environment. So no corruption, where you have very good idea about your rights and your duties and so on. And this experience is today, in my opinion, the most valuable asset for Ukraine, because we have here very big problems with corruption at different levels. They have Ukrainian politicians. They have very big problems in reforming the judiciary sector, and it is very difficult to understand how Ukraine could become a successful country without these needed reforms. So having good experiences about what good governance system looks exactly, it's a very good point.
So having a point of comparison with...
Yes. And also not to be afraid also to say what do you think about different proposals or different reforms the Ukrainian government tries to develop, because the civil society in Ukraine is stronger now comparing before Maidan, but Ukrainians from abroad could be very useful allies also, trying to help civil society's organizations, civil society initiatives to put pressure and more pressure and much more pressure on the Ukrainian power.
Thank you very much for this interview. It was a pleasure to have you in the studio.
Thanks for having me.
That was Violeta Moskalu, co-founder of Global Ukrainian Forum. Thank you for joining us. Stay tuned for the rest.